On Saturday, the 2nd of December 2006, a military parade marked the 50th anniversary of the Cuban Revolution and Fidel Castro's official birthday in Havana. Castro himself was unable to appear. It seems that the highest power in the country has been permanently transferred to Raúl Castro. Changes in the leadership will not bring about any changes of the political system, assures an influential member of the Cuban parliament.
I don't
think there will be any change. Everything will continue as usual. 5 years ago we reformed the constitution. In a national referendum at that time, more than 95% of the population signed a wish to retain the socialist system and achievements of the revolution as irrevocable.
La Constitución se reformara y se estableciera el sistema socialista y los logros alcanzados por la revolución como algo irrevocable.
Raúl Castro carries the authority of the revolutionary soldier. His dominating position is secured by leadership of the Communist Party and supreme command of the army. Even the Ministry of the Interior is controlled by the army. The Ministry of the Interior has a very strong position in Cuba. It is responsible for internal security and in charge of all the different police forces. And the policemen abound, especially in Havana. Police officers are in a privileged position in Cuba. Their salary is 2.5 times that of medical doctors. Distinguished military officers may have an opportunity to strike it rich in business. Most state-owned companies are owned by the army or managed by military officers. Why is that? It's a tradition in Cuba. It has been that way for ages. Even Che Guevara founded a number of companies while he was still fighting in the mountains. The tradition has stuck.
Muchas empresas dentro del ejército rebelde. Y esa tradición siguió.
The daily life of Cuban citizens is strictly controlled by the establishment. The government is assisted by a unique organization of citizens. Every residential quarter in Cuba has a Committee for the Defense of the Revolution, or CDR. They maintain registers of all the people in Cuba. The main purpose is to ensure that no one or nothing will put the achievements of the revolution at risk. We have more than 135,000 neighbourhood committees and more than 17,000 CDR areas. Over 8 million have joined the organisation. The CDRists are responsible for a number of service tasks. Recently, volunteers have been busy day and night spraying pesticides against mosquitoes that spread dengue fever. But the main role of the committees for the defence of the revolution, as defined by Fidel Castro, is something very different. With the help of the organisation, we know who is who moves with whom and does what, and how people are affected by the flunkies of imperialism. Ideas are the weapons of CDR, as the slogan goes. Other slogans include warnings, which local bosses issue to citizens deemed as antisocial. You can get a notice if you do not work for the state, or if you are active in an independent trade union, but you may get into other kinds of trouble as well. I have been given 5 warnings for being dangerous, and I was fired from my job because of political activity. A citizen who fails to change his or her behaviour despite CDR's warnings will be severely punished. For that we have a separate system. Sector chiefs of the police, investigating judges and a preventative commission. But this involves other types of action. Legal processes against dangerous persons because of antisocial behaviour. A sentence for dangerousness is very common in Cuba. It may be up to 4 years in prison, though Cuban legislation does not actually define dangerousness as a crime.
Se trata de aquellos individuos.
This involves people susceptible to crime, people who manifest their antisocial attitudes by their behaviour, endangering the whole society.
Una conducta antisocial que pone en peligro la ciudadanía en sentido general.
A Cuban identity card looks like this. Black people, in particular, have to show their papers frequently. Police officers are particularly interested in the address written on the back of the card. People arriving to Havana from other parts of the country must carry a visa. It is issued for a definite period only. But in the outskirts of the city, there are thousands of people with no visa. This shantytown in the outskirts of Havana is one of the poorest parts of the city. Some of the houses have been built with nothing else but cardboard and corrugated sheet. It's called lega and pon, which means come and put up. The explanation is clear. Why is this place called lega and pon? Because we come from elsewhere and put up our dwellings here. Where do you come from? From the east. So you all come from the east? Yes. There are lots of people in the street and it's 10 in the morning. Why are you not back at work? Because we are from Lega y Pon. We have no address in Havana. We come from the east. Don't you have the right to work? Yes, but we do not have a job because of the address. Are you living here illegally? Yes. Don't you have a visa? No. What happens if the police wants to see your visa? We must go back to the east. Could you return here later? Sure, but it would mean jail. Anyone travelling to another town without a visa is guilty of a crime called disobedience. The sentence is 2 months in prison. The inhabitants of Lega y Pon flout the orders, though a committee for the defence of the revolution works even in this village. We can be sentenced for disobedience. What kind of consequences can you expect? You can be put into jail for several years, whether you are a man or a woman with children.
Simplemente podemos cumplir causa y años en la cárcel. No importa que sea hombre, mujer, que tenga niño, no importa.
These people defy the national leadership in another way. They are independent journalists and dissidents who openly oppose the government. Oscar Mario Gonzalez was released from prison 5 days before our interview. His term was 16 months. In fact, it was abduction. They had no arrest warrant. I was arrested by 4 young men. Ladies in White is the only group that is officially allowed to demonstrate against the government. The government cannot attack these women, whose only weapon is a lily they carry in their hand. The government cannot afford to let the international media know that any of these women should be hurt when they are only asking for freedom for their husbands who have been illegally arrested. Dolia Leal Francisco founded the organization as her husband became a political prisoner. 13 years, 13. For what? My husband heads the Liberty Party. You are not permitted to get organized in Cuba. Opposition is illegal in Cuba. The ladies in white demand that political prisoners should be released. Some of the prisoners don't even know why they have been arrested. I was never convicted. I asked why I had been arrested, but they never told me. Did you have a lawyer? Yes, but you must understand that in a totalitarian system, all power is held by the government. A lawyer is only a decoration with no practical purpose.
El abogado es una figura decorativa. El abogado no ejerce no tiene ninguna relevancia.
Ladies in White have won the EU's Human Rights Award. The security police is pressing them to give up their activity. Dolia Leal says the security police have been threatening her. Dolia, you know how ill Nelson is. Everyone knows how ill Nelson is. If you continue in the ladies in white, he will have to pay for it. Whatever happens to him, it's inflicted by you. You are causing a lot of damage to the revolution. We have reports on you. You are persuading other women to join. Nelson will have to pay for all of that. But I said, he will not pay. I will. Political prisoners are put into jails that are as far away from their homes as possible in an effort to try and prevent them from communicating with their families. I was not physically tortured, but I felt I was tortured psychologically. How? The living conditions were as such. First of all, I was completely segregated. I didn't even have a radio. I didn't hear anything from anything. My family was allowed to visit for 10 minutes a week. But 2 policemen were standing beside us all the time. We could only talk about family matters. Dissidents are not only watched by the secret police, even neighbours working for the CDR watch them day and night. The Cuban people will not allow anyone to betray the revolution or its principles. I was never arrested or put to jail, but I have been like a prisoner in my own neighbourhood. My home, family and friends are being watched. All my visitors will be disturbed afterwards. They are asked what they know about me and my doings. I'm afraid to visit anyone because I don't like to complicate anyone's life by my presence.
Incluso a veces yo tengo miedo de visitar a las personas porque no quiero complicarles su vida, no quiero que ellos vayan por mi presencia a tomar represalias.
Sharing knowledge is the most important activity of dissidents. Independent libraries help in doing this. There are about 150 home libraries like this one. We provide information to people who come here and get it. Information on any subject, because the government censors literature. Independent libraries distribute books by writers such as Václav Havel, but there are also children's books. There are many books that children cannot get in Cuba. Even children's books are censored by the government. The school offers a certain doctrine only. Teachers obey the government's orders as to what you can read. It's propaganda. Yes, propaganda at school.
Es propaganda.
Propaganda.
En escuela.
En la escuela.
The United States Interest Section officer in Havana works in this building. The Cuban government claims dissidents work on orders from this office. True or not, some of the dissidents use the services of this US office, including the internet, which is not available for them in Cuba. I don't even have a decent typewriter. My machine dates back to 1930. I'm not familiar with the internet world, but I can use my email thanks to the US Interest Office. They have computers and I can use my email there. The Cuban establishment dismisses opposition as an unimportant tinkering with no kind of future perspective. There is a group of people in Cuba who are paid by the USA for creating an image of the existence of an anti-government movement, but it's only a tiny group, with no significance at all in Cuban society. And they are not representing any changing winds in Cuba.
Pero eso no es más que un grupo muy reducido de individuos que no tienen representatividad ninguna en la sociedad cubana y que además no representa para la sociedad cubana ningún elemento de cambio ni nada por el estilo.
The Cuban elite proclaims we are just fine. Despite the downplaying of the role of the dissidents, the leadership has been oppressing the opposition systematically. But after Fidel Castro fell ill, the situation has changed a little. Oppression has abated a little. Why? Fewer sentences are being given, and you see less arbitrary arrests. There are also few reports of visits by representatives of the political establishment.
Ya no hay ese acoso de visita a los factores, en este caso se le llama factores a los representantes de los organismos políticos y de masa que existen en la zona de residencia.
Why has the level of oppression of the opposition abated? It's possible that the new political forces are entering the stage. Either they are going to draw up a different political agenda, or they are analyzing the situation to return to former practices.
Una agenda política diferente a la que se está llevando hasta este momento. O es posible que estén estudiando, analizando para volver a retomarla.
Even the people in the opposition are on their toes, unwilling to provoke the leadership. No one in Cuba seems to believe in any rapid changes in the country's political way of life.
Yo pienso que no. Hay otros que pueden dirigir el país.
I don't believe there will be any change. There are others who can lead the country. Not at the moment. It's very difficult to think about any change.
I
don't have any illusions about Fidel Castro's death leading to major democratic changes, at least not in the sense this is understood elsewhere in the world. Economic changes may be ahead a la China or Vietnam, but there will hardly be a multi-party system, democratic dialogue or freedom of expression. It's difficult to imagine free press that would not be controlled by the interests of a certain person or a group. I think it's something that may still have to wait on the horizon.
De que haya libertad de asociación, de que haya libertad de expresión, que haya una prensa libre que circule sin estar maniatada, sin responder a los intereses de una persona o un grupo de personas o de un Estado. Creo que eso va a demorar un poco. No lo veo en el horizonte. Vaya, no es que lo vea en el horizonte, es que está...
¿Por qué no es posible?
Why does it seem impossible? Because the generation that created this system is still in power.
Que creó este sistema es la que sigue ostentando el poder.
Primavera que me queda tan cercana, tan distinta, tan humana, tan callada, tan primera. Tan hermana. Esta primavera que me da todo.